what we have right here is a JavaScript function that actually generates the Fibonacci sequence. If you don't know, the Fibonacci sequence is a sequence of numbers. So it starts with 0 and 1, and then every subsequent number is the sum of the two numbers before it. So it's a simple function. So what we're going to do is define a function called Fibonacci sequence. The parameter will be the length. So if I want to know the first three digits of the sequence, I give it the number 3. It gives me the first three numbers of the Fibonacci sequence, which would be 0, 1, and 1. So that's what that is. So that's the length parameter. So here's what we're going to do. So if the length is 0 or less than 0, we're going to return an empty array. And the reason why we're going to do that is because the length has to be at least 1. The length has to be at least 1. If it's anything less than that, you're just going to get an empty array, and that's going to be it. Okay, so we got that down. Now, what we have to do is, what I did right here is I created an array. Okay, so I'm going to assign it this variable sequence. It's going to be an array with 0 and 1, which are the first two numbers of the sequence. So we have that first. So we have to do that because we're going to actually, well, you'll learn later on why I'm doing that, but that's what I'm going to do. All right, so here's what we have. What we have right here is a for loop, okay? So if you look at the brackets, okay, we're going to iterate. There's going to be some sort of iteration involved. So you got to look at these two lines, which are lines number 9 and 10 inside the brackets. That's what those are the lines of code that we're going to execute and we're going to iterate on. So here's how we're going to do it. So we have the next number, which is going to be after the first two numbers. Okay, so we have to calculate that. So we give it, so we have the variable constant next number. And what it's going to equal is obviously the sum of the two numbers before it. So if we look at this right here, we see the word sequence. Okay, well, that's the array. Okay, that's right here, the array with 0 and 1. Okay, so these two numbers are actually the two numbers that precede constant next number, because if you look at it, you have an index number. See, I minus 1 and I minus 2. So if you look at the for loop, what we're going to do is we're going to start with I equaling 2. Well, what is that? That's the third index of the sequence array, which is going to be the next number, obviously. So we start with I equals 2. As long as it's less than length, we're going to increment I. So you should be able to see how that works. Okay, so now what do we have? Well, we have our sequence variable, 0 and 1. What we're going to do is we're going to have to add to that, obviously, because it's just going to make sense, obviously. So what do we do? Well, we use the push method in JavaScript. So we have the first two numbers of the sequence, of the Fibonacci sequence, which is 0 and 1, and we have to push onto that other numbers. So we have, which is, of course, the next number. Once again, if you look at it, it makes complete sense, and then you just return the sequence. So in this case, right here, all I have to really do is console.log the function, give it the number that I want, which is the parameter, which is the length. So in this case, if you were to run this program, it would give you the first 5 numbers of the Fibonacci sequence. So that's basically how that works. That's pretty much the best way to write this. I kind of like how I did the beginning of this program with this, returning the empty array if someone asks for a number less than 0. That makes sense. Then obviously you have, the first two numbers of the sequence, 0 and 1, put that in array, and then to get any number after that, you have the for loop. So that's basically